Meanwhile, countries around the world are also stepping up their defenses against China. Some are taking the business route, others preparing militarily. Let me give you two recent examples. A day after India banned 59 Chinese apps and hit at China's soft power, the United States has followed suit. The US has banned Huawei and ZTE corporations. Both, of course, are Chinese firms. Washington has said that Huawei, ZTE, their parent companies and subsidiaries are all national security threats. So the companies will no longer be allowed to function in America. Here's something to note. The tussle between Washington, Huawei and ZTE is almost a decade old. The first US action against them dates back to 2012. The Obama administration had blacklisted ZTE. Then Trump slapped ZTE with a $1.3 billion fine. And now this ban. On this show, we've been saying that India should revisit its policy on Huawei, which is part of India's 5G trials. Earlier this evening, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo backed India's decision to ban Chinese apps. Listen to this.
I call on all nations, women's advocates, religious groups, and human rights organizations to stand up for the Chinese people's basic human dignity. Look, the Chinese Communist Party's brutality affects the rest of the world too. We welcome India's ban on certain mobile apps that can serve as an appendages of the CCP's surveillance state. India's clean app approach will boost India's sovereignty. It will also boost India's integrity and national security, as the Indian government itself has stated.
Then we have Australia, China's new enemy. They've been sparring on everything from tariffs to a pandemic probe. Australia has now decided to increase its defense spending. Why now? To counter the rise of China. Canberra has committed to $270 billion in defense spending over the next 10 years. The plan is to build a larger military, one that is focused on its immediate backyard. Over the next 4 years, Australia will add more than 800 people to its defense force. It's preparing to take on China on the high seas if provoked, and Scott Morrison, the Prime Minister, is not being shy about it.
Australia will invest in longer-range strike weapons, cyber capabilities and area denial. As mentioned, we're expanding our plans to acquire long-range maritime and land strike capabilities and to invest in more highly integrated sensors and weapons.
Do you see how the world is preparing to make China pay? And why wouldn't they? This is something you should know. China has not just stolen information through technology or been a bullying trade partner. China has stolen land. China is currently guilty of grabbing land from 18 countries, 1/8. What India is facing on the border is not a one-off case. China is a repeat offender. It swallows land of all neighbors. It shares land boundaries with more than a dozen countries. Let me show you a map to give you a fairer idea. China is engaged in a land dispute with Japan over parts of the East China Sea, especially Senkaku Islands and the Ryukyu Islands. China also has land disputes with Vietnam in the South China Sea, and of course it has occupied more than 38,000 square kilometers of Indian land and stakes claim to more. Then we have Nepal, China's new best friend. Beijing claims parts of Nepal dating back to the Sino-Nepalese War. China has a land dispute with North Korea. Beijing says Baekdu, the Baekdu mountain, and Jiandao belong to China. With the Philippines, China is engaged in a tussle over parts of the South China Sea. Russia too has not been spared. China has grabbed 160,000 square kilometers of Russian land. The list is a long one. Apart from the countries I've already mentioned, China has also staked claim to territories belonging to Singapore, South Korea, Bhutan, Taiwan, Laos, Brunei, Tajikistan, Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia and Mongolia. That makes it a total of 18 countries. And this is China's land grab alone. Now to its trade wars, diplomatic battles. You add them all together and you would hardly be left with a country that China has not rubbed the wrong way. So it's safe to say there's a global chorus against China, and Beijing's censuring was long time coming.